whether or not. Thank goodness. Just curious as to whether a water license has been allocated for the property or not.
Okay, through the CEO to the Chair and Director Hardy. Few things to say. Again, first of all, this property is in the Fanny Bay Waterworks District, and staff has checked with the Waterworks District that there's no need or requirement to connect to the service. So they do rely on private wells. With respect to water license, a couple of things again. I was advised by the applicant that they have begun to work on this matter with the province. And secondly, that this is a building permit check or requirement. So while it's good information to know now, it's not, again, a development permit area consideration at this time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, John. Sorry, Brian. So anything else for staff? So I guess a motion to receive. And on receipt, call a question. Now we have two recommendations. I need recommendation one moved. Is it one? Where am I at? Well, I went down too far, sorry. So one recommendation, okay, that the Comox Valley Region District approve commercial industrial form and character development permit for the Fanny Bay Resort, Inc. And seconded. Any more discussion on the recommendation? Call a question on that. All in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Okay, we're on to number 5. This is affordable housing service options for Denman and Hornby Islands. Report for receipt. I'll call receipt for a motion now. Receipt. And seconded. And then on to report.
Thank you very much, Chair and Directors, and Jake Martins is here to present this report and answer any of your questions. Thank you very much, Russell, and through the chair. So as the directors will recall, at the end of last term, a scoping study was received respecting the regional district's potential support for the affordable housing sector on Denman and Hornby Island. The report noted 3 main categories. Firstly, the provision of capital funding. Secondly, the coordination and navigation of the housing sector. And finally, the third is education and advocacy, both on the islands and externally. The report and the delegations that were received at that meeting in September highlighted sort of the criticality of the provision of capital funding, and that was to, of course, secure the leveraging of funding with senior levels of government and other funders. The committee had referred this report to the strategic planning session in 2023. However, an unfortunate update has occurred since then, in which staff have identified the ineligibility of the contribution of community works funds to affordable housing projects. And as both a couple of projects had identified that as tentative funding sources, this certainly presents a direct impact to those prospective recipients. The 2 projects that I've just identified there are the Beulah Creek Village and the Denman Green project, the first one on Hornby Island, the second one on Denman, of course. So in an attempt to try and mitigate any impacts to these projects, staff have brought forward a sort of cursory report that looks at your options for potentially finding alternative means to support these projects. There's 4 options identified. There's the establishment of a new affordable housing service that could apply to one island or both islands separately. Secondly, there's the existing economic development services that function on both Hornby and Denman. And those are possible sources as well for the committee to consider. Thirdly is the amendment to the existing homelessness support service, which currently Denman and Hornby are not part of. It's not within the boundary of the service, but it could be expanded to be included. And the 4th option is the Rural Community Grant Program, which, as the committee knows, is an option to provide annual grants to nonprofit organizations that are providing community support services. So those are the 4, and we've identified some considerations with respect to each of them. Staff have come forward through this report to recommend option number 2, which is the existing economic development services, and have provided 2 recommendations associated with that. to seek the advancement towards the financial planning process in which a capital contribution could be made. With that, Mr. Chair, I'm pleased to answer any questions.
Any questions? Sounds like a good solution to me. Dr. Arbor.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it is. Staff has been doing some good work on this, but I think, yeah, there's still different pathways that are before us in terms of how ultimately these things get funded on the islands. And I think the staff did a good job of outlining some of the options. I know we received the housing report in August or September for the islands, and it still leaves the question hanging about the service. Whether a service specific and paid for by Hornby and Denman Islanders is, especially for Denman. Hornby has some opportunities around MRDT, but I may have a suggestion. Sorry, I'll make just a bit of a comment and then get to my point. But I was thinking how we meet with the Islands Trust each year, right? We have a meeting with the Islands Trust, and I'm wondering if we could vary or the agenda a little bit to actually invite the housing groups and have a little bit of a think session between, you know, having the elected officials there and really discuss whether we want to launch a service or explore it further with both the island trustees that will be there and the groups that are currently operating. I think that would be worthwhile because we haven't had everyone in the room, and so it might be good to do that. And even, yeah, so that's just one thought on the service side. I think it would help inform our thoughts a little more. And then the second, in regards specifically to Denman Works, and I guess us finding out that community works funds won't really work for not only this one, but the Hornby, we have to come up with a solution for both, and I'm hopeful we will. I think that in the case of the Denman one, yeah, I think I'm in favor of proceeding with looking at the economic development function and building a little model around that for one-time capital contribution. This will help them with they're really at the ground level, so to speak, right now, well, below ground really, and help them with some of those items. And we've heard so much from BC Housing and CMHC that it's now expected that local government contributes to this project. Otherwise, you kind of end up at the back of the queue. So I think I would like to proceed with that, and maybe as part of financial planning that we be presented with that option in January. In the meantime, if there's a need for Denman Green to receive some confirmation or some letter of intent or something like that that they can use in their application, I think that would be great. Yeah, I think the long-term solution, I mean, both of, again, just for Dr. Hardy, so the Islands Trust did affordable housing, and I mean, just a housing needs assessment like we've done for the Comox Valley. It identifies a need on each island for about 100 units of affordable housing. And there's a project underway on Hornby that would provide 26, and the one on Denman Island, there's actually 2 projects happening that would provide 30 or so, maybe more. But we're just starting to try to make a dent into the problem because it's been many years of no real progress. So thankfully, we have amazing organizations working there, and I think CVRD showing leadership and helping them out with landing the big fish, which is CMHC and BC Housing, is an important role for us. So yeah, I'd be prepared to move both recommendations, and maybe if you need an adjustment, or whether staff can just take that, whatever you need for the Islands Trust meeting, for us to look at including the housing group and having a little specific component to that meeting. That would be great.
Okay, so we all know the senior government's budgets are just bulging with money right now, so we can always make an ask anyway. Now, this is the one with 2 recommendations. Do we vote on receipt? Not yet. Okay, on receipt. All in favor? And move 1. So move it. Okay, I'll second it. So on recommendation 1, all those in favor? Any opposed or? Quick one?
Sorry, Chair, question in regards to the capital commitment. Do we know what that is? Does that need to be included here in the recommendation?
Is it?
Through the chair, no. So the specific amount is not noted in the report or in the recommendation. That's referred to the financial planning process in which the board could then consider what exactly the amount would be, whether it be a one-time grant or whether there's a preference to do it over a number of years. So that amount is left out at this point. We're hoping that resolution number 1, which is the commitment, at least gives the existing funding applications that these groups have in some comfort in that there's a intent there to provide a contribution.
Director?
Yeah, thanks for asking the question. And just for a general sense, I think what we did with Hornby, it was in low 6 figures, like 100,000 plus. And in the case of the 2 projects on deck, I think it's that kind of level of amount that can make a difference in early stage in terms of the early design and engineering. So I expect that financial planning to be that, but I also understand from a conversation with staff that if we use the economic development function, we also have to look at maximum requisitions and all these different things. So how it gets parceled out may, that'll come in the report. But I think for the applicant, it'd be the total sum would be in 100,000 or something like that. Yeah.
Director?
Yeah, so again, just wanting to make sure what commitment we're making in regards to the capital. So if we can get clarification on that, I think that would help me in regards to making the decision a yes or no in regards to considering the commitment. Thanks.
Yeah, so through the chair, if I can clarify, I'll do my best here. So the commitment itself, as you'll note there, the voting indicates 207 all one vote. So we're suggesting this commitment is really coming from the economic development services for Denman and Hornby Island, not from the whole. You know, this resolution will be ratified by the board, but certainly the intent here is to fund them, as the report indicates, through those 2 services. And the amount itself, as Director Arbor has noted, both groups have requested $100,000, but we can't fetter the discretion of the board through the financial planning process. So certainly we want to go through that process in which we'll confirm the specific amount that they wish to provide. So yeah, at this point, we're trying to, like I said, provide that comfort to the groups that it is the intent of the CVRD to provide a contribution, but leave that amount out until the financial planning process in which the board confirms that through that process.
And once again, of course, the money is supplied by the ratepayers of the respective islands. Okay, so once again, on 1, all in favor? Passes. And a motion on 2, please. Yep. On 2, call the question. All in favor? That also carries unanimously. Now, I know there was a couple waiting here from 10 o'clock on for the Radford Road Local Service Area Feasibility Study. So I'm sure they're at home watching this on their laptop right now. So a motion to receive the report from December 1st, 2022. And on we go.
Thank you very much, Chair and Directors. And KP Bummer is here to present this report and answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Over the past year, staff have been in discussion with residents in the Radford Road area interested in connecting to municipal water supply. At the April 11th meeting, the ASC directed staff to complete a feasibility study showing the servicing requirements, financial implications, and potential government options with the establishment of the new water local service area at the Radford Road area. The work is now complete and concludes that while there aren't any likely technical challenges to establishing a community water service system in the area, the costs are likely significantly higher than previously thought. Based on conversations with other residents in the area and the higher than expected costs, staff believe that many residents in the contemplated boundary will not be supportive of connection to the municipal water. There's also reason to believe that the issues experienced by some may be due to shallow groundwater wells, with the potential of deeper wells demonstrated by many in the area. Based on the high cost per connection, possible alternative option of drilling deeper wells, and further discussions with residents not interested in connection, staff do not recommend further assessment of this initiative. Upon completion of this report, staff have received correspondence from residents from the residents that introduced this initiative, that they are concerned with our recommendation to not continue the investigation, confirming need and support from community water system in the area. But as the report highlights, these residents still have the ability to petition for service with the information provided in this report.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're looking at $22,000 per connection. Is that what we're looking at there?
That's right, yes. So that would also
For 100 connections, area 1 and 2. I guess you could drill a deep well for just about that amount of money.
I did initially, I did reach out to a drilling company that estimated about 10,000. But there'd be 10,000 for a bit of a deeper well in kind of the 75-foot range. But would there be additional costs as well?
Well, I think the director for Area B is next in line. Dr. Hardy.
Thanks, Chair. So I know I've received a few different emails and phone calls over the last few days in regards to this particular item. And one of the questions that has come out is in regards to how many people were contacted. I think 15 people had called in saying that they weren't interested. So staff making a recommendation based upon 15 people's phoning in and saying, you know, we don't want to be included in this particular service. So I'm just, again, being a newbie, trying to understand that process of how the CVRD or its staff makes those decisions or recommendations. You know, is there a big communique that goes out to all the areas or all the 109 homes that I think were identified in the area? Is there any type of communication going out to them with the opportunity to pursue access to water? Just trying to understand the process. Thanks.
For sure, yeah, I think I can answer that. So there was some initial canvassing that was done by the residents, and they kind of created a map. And then well, we haven't communicated I've only kind of received information either through that map on kind of interest. And then when I got those phone calls, a lot of them were kind of yellow, maybe, you know, they might be interested, but they've definitely, there was a shift to no, especially kind of when I was kind of chatting with them about the costs. So the establishment of this document will definitely be kind of useful for anyone to have kind of more fulsome understanding of kind of what the implications are.
Dr. Hardy.
I'm sure there's a number of different folks within that area that would like to get more information and receive the report. I think some of the folks that you've made mention of that phoned you, but I think there's a number of other folks that really didn't have that opportunity to phone in or communicate or receive the report with regards to what it would cost for various folks up there. I understand that the cost increase depending on how many people are involved in that service as well. And I also understand there's the other component with regards to the town of Comox and their wanting or desire to share some of the water that go through their pipes there. So I'm not sure if I've asked a clear enough question for you there in regards to, again, just understanding that process. What I'm seeing is a recommendation that there's not to be any more follow-up or work undertaken with regards to this process. It's done, it's completed.
Chris.
Thanks, and through the chair, and just to reiterate what Kaylee summarized there is that, you know, for a combination of reasons, yes, our recommendation is that we not assign any more resources to assessing this opportunity, but and those being it's higher than expected costs per connection, estimated based on the technical work we've done. The apparent availability of an alternative. So there are deeper wells scattered through that area that are producing well, producing a lot of water. And then the third being cost, availability of alternative being the primary. Oh, and then these follow-up communications in contrast with that original polling done by the local residents, so which indicated a less strong support for the concept in the area. So on that basis, we don't feel there is a strong case for community water in the area. That being said, as we've highlighted in the report and highlighting again today, it's as Kelly mentions, the information is now available for residents should they decide to take another go at communicating with their neighbors, and they're free to petition for community service. So the analysis has been done. They now have the tools with which to undertake that consultation, and they have the ability to initiate a petition process should they decide that the support is there. Yeah.
Director Arbor?
Yeah, thanks. And just showing support for Dr. Hardy here. Just a quick question is, are those houses on septic or they're connected to the sewage?
I believe they're all on septic.
Right. So one of the septic study that we did identified a number of, we prioritize risk areas across the regional district. So places like Ships Point or Union Bay and Royston were identified. And I remember that one of the key criteria in the risk assessment, whether the well water was also in conjunction with septic fields. So then that would be a negative to have both the septic and the well area. And so it seems to me like in this particular area, I can't remember, obviously it's been a year since I looked at the report, but I can imagine that that area would not be flashing green in terms of risk assessment in regards to sharing the water with the septics. So, and at that cost, I mean, we are looking at a number of projects which amortize over many years. Those figures are high, but everything's high these days. And there is likely to just go up. So I did notice that option 2 was kind of what Director Hardy was talking about. You gave 2 options. One is to drop it. And option 2 is that additional consultation or analysis be undertaken to confirm the need and support for community water system, which is what Chris was saying. It seems like you've already done the analysis, and it'd be nice to test it more fully with your electorate if you feel there's some people that have the appetite as well.
So in other words, option 2, the additional consultation or analysis be undertaken to confirm the need and support for the community water system in this area. That would be recommendation, the alternate recommendation. If we could couple that up with some more outreach, perhaps, because, as expensive as it is, in 10 years, it'll look like a deal.
Thank you. I guess there's a number of things to take into consideration. Yes, option 2 would be something that I would like to see be undertaken. Again, with regards to the consultation from CVRD with the area, I mean, is it that big of an expense or that much of a time being allocated to have, even just 1 or 2 different forums for information purposes for people that come and make a decision. Also taken into mind and into consideration as well with the new liquid waste management plan that's being put in place with that underground pipe that's going in and around the area. If there's some type of disruption that could occur that could impact their well water system moving forward as well. So again, I just want to make sure for my constituents at the end of the day that all the bases are open for them to look at. And we're not just saying no and that's it for another 10 years or so. Thanks.
CAO wants to weigh in on this one.
Yeah, just provide an option. I think what you're asking for is better communication to those that could potentially connect. And how about if we were to send a letter out to all the service area that is proposed, inform them that the report is available to them and outline the process to establish a service and, wait for their feedback. As Chris has alluded to and Kaylee as well, these costs are on the assumption that everybody participates. So I think you need, before we undertake any more work that is like any work that we do and spend on this, we don't get it back. We don't have a means to pay for it unless the service area is established. That would be a very quick and efficient way just to weigh the potential interest that there is before putting this to bed. So my suggestion is maybe option 3, and that would be to send a letter out to the service area, providing them a copy of the report and outlining how a service area is established and seeing what the response is.
Sounds reasonable, Dr. Robert?
And just to confirm that, and for Director Hardy, if he's not fully aware yet, I don't know that all of our processes are known, but for establishing a service, just confirming that there's 3 methods of doing that. One is by petition, if more than 50% in the area signs up. The other is through an AEP process, which is if that would be CVRD initiated, and that's if no more than 10% of people oppose it. And the last one is a not right referendum. So I guess we would lay out those 3 options in that letter. Yeah, okay.
That could be part of the communication. Seeing no more speakers. Somebody want to craft something or we've done receipt, right? We haven't voted on receipt. Good. There's a little bit of leeway. Vote on receipt. All in favor? Okay, now, Director Hardy.
Option 3, if it's on the table, or 3B. Because I think Daniel added a little bit more to it as well, right?
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, so we'll do a mail out to the residents explaining the process, highlighting the report on the web page, and see how it goes, how it flies from there. Meanwhile, we won't spend any more money on engineering until we get to that point. Okay, all in favor? Unanimous. Barreling right along. Minto Road Water Main Replacement Budget Amendment for receipt. And seconded. And over to CAO, or just back to the.
Yeah, it's back to Kaylee again to present this report. Thanks.
Thank you. Minto Road Water Main Replacement Project upgrades the size and configuration of the water main along Minto Road in Royston to provide significantly better fire flows to the area. CVRD staff undertook a public tender process in September with the lowest bid being significantly over the original project estimate, but is still considered to be reasonable by staff and the design engineer given market conditions, and would only be higher if the tender would be run in the spring. As the system currently is configured, a large portion of the service would experience a service disruption to make this connection. To avoid this service disruption, staff recommend a hot tap, a new valve on Royston Road at a value of $35,000. An amendment to the 2022-2026 financial plan is recommended to meet the higher than expected tender pricing and valve cost to be funded by an additional $135,000 of reserves. This increase would be more than offset by a change in plans for the Livingston Road property owned by the water service. The Livingston pressure reducing valve was intended to be relocated in 2022, but staff are now intending to leave it on the existing property, negating the need for the current $289,000 in the financial plan.
Thank you very much. Any discussion on that? Sounds pretty cut and dry. Dr. Robert?
Yeah, thanks. It sounds like a need more than a wish for this one. So obviously we likely need to proceed with it. But with all things water right now, obviously, I'm wondering if those revised cost estimates are going to have any sort of impact on our bigger project in the area around the switch to Comox Lake water. So are these types of figures and increases a preview of updates that we may see in relation to that project, or are we still in pretty good shape? And for Dr. Hardy, and to refresh Dr. Grieve, that project is to remove ourselves the Royston service from Cumberland Water to Comox Lake, which actually there's the agreement with KFN as well.
Yeah, through the chair, I can speak to that one, Kaylee. So as Kaylee mentioned, we are fortunate in this specific case that we have another project that the Livingston Road PRV piece that isn't going to proceed. So there's some offsetting funds there to help fund this. As far as increases to the Water South Extension project, we'll be bringing forward an update on that soon, but we have been able to adjust the scope a little bit, optimize the scope, which should help to offset a similar proportion of cost escalation on that project. So right now we're on track for very similar to the numbers that you've seen in the past. Yeah. Early 23. So, yeah.
So would this be redundant if we connected through to the Comox Valley system?
No, definitely distinct.
It would still be functional.
Yes, and in fact, the change that we're referring to at Livingston, at the Livingston property, is partially an opportunity that's come up through the design that we've dove into for the Water South Extension project. So enabling us to combine some infrastructure on that site rather than treating it separately. So there's a bit of a synergy, in fact.
Thank you, Director Barber.
And so I guess that means we're still going to keep that property. And the old liquid waste management, it still says liquid waste management office. The sign is still up, by the way. It's like everybody walks by it. But I remember there was a thought that we might use it for pump stations in either the sewage project or the water project. So is that still the thought, or well?
No, the current thinking is that it's very likely that property will find some type of use within the CVRD rather than a sale, but that's still being considered. But our thought is that we will establish like an easement or an SRW for the infrastructure on the property, and either it could find another use within the CVRD or be sold. But either way, a source of revenue for the service to help fund the significant projects that are facing the system. The pump station was originally planned for that site, but we've now shifted it up the road to the 3851, which is the property that was impacted by the landslide. Yeah.
And just so you're sure, we will, even if it's reused for another purpose of the CVRD, revenue will go to the water system, which owns the asset. That's the way we do business. Yeah.
Well, see any further lights? So on receipt, call a question. In favor? Oh, hold on.
We're good. I'll just put my mic on and say good.
You're speaking to the receipt or speaking to the motion?
Receipt.
Okay, so we're all good. Okay, so that passes, and then we have a recommendation. Moved and seconded. Perfect. And on the recommendation, all those in favor? That passes unanimously. Now, I can't believe it. We're on item number 8, 2022 additional rural community grant considerations. And seconded.
Thank you very much. And Doug DeMarzo, General Manager, Community Services, will present the report and answer any of your questions.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. Good afternoon through the chair. This is one of our last presentations around the rural community grants. As you will note, there's still an uncommitted balance of $63,053 for Area C and $134,261 overall. Typically, we take these grant applications up until the end of March. And then if you recall, we kind of revisit them once in a while throughout the year as they come in. This one in particular is for the Black Creek Bread for Life Food Share. And they're looking for an additional $18,000 in support to help with their Christmas hamper program, as well as the food bank needs in the Black Creek area. This is one of those instances we don't often see the Black Creek Bread of Life Food Share come as a rural community grant application. Although this is the second time they have been here with a significant ask here for $18,000 to help support that community. As such, in Appendix A, you will see your commitments to date, and it's up to your discretions on how you would like to commit and if you would like to commit to support this community grant application. Happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thanks. So seeing no other lights, my question is, it seemed to me last time it was more like $5,000. Was it, did Kevin, you have that information? I don't think they were on the regular schedule. They came late as a special request, but I thought it was around 5,000 or 6,000. I know groceries have gone up. Don't get me wrong.
So through the chair to the director. So you were inquiring as to what we provided them in past years?
Correct.
Yeah, it was approximately $5,000. I'd have to pull that up real quick here. Let's take a look. There we go. So last year we didn't actually provide them anything, I don't believe, director or chair, but yes, it was in 2020. It was $5,500. Correct.
Pretty close. Okay, well, I'd be willing to put in $10,000. So I think that would help them out a lot. So, from Area C, yeah. Because I'm sure Area A has and Hornby Dam have a lot of demands. And I seem to be the old money bags here in Area C with my grant and aid. So yeah, I'm willing to commit $10,000. So if I can be seconded on that. Second, okay.
Well, we're still.
Oh, we're still on receipt. The old, we're still on receipt. Director
No,
Harvey.
no questions. I'll just get ready.
Director Arbor?
Before we vote, because that'll be the end of the meeting after, I just have a question whether how department has received an application from Hornby, had been holding some money back. And I think there's a consortium working towards improvement to the playground. So I just want to make sure if that application was received in the last few weeks.
Yes, that application was received and recently reviewed last week.
Yeah.
We've advised the candidate that we'll be looking at it around March. They do have some implementations that they feel that they'd be better served if they were advised earlier, that they might be able to look at the grant, being able to get grants from other organizations.
So are they able to use a possible amount from us or in those applications or no?
Given that it's a rural grant function, I think that's really at the discretion of the directors.
Yeah,
If
we
you'd like
saw
to
already.
put a motion forward now, we could look at something along those lines.
So after the vote, I'll do that.
Okay.
Yeah, and for the benefit of our newly minted director, these community grants are just about the only discretionary money that we have as electoral area directors. And we get a lot of requests for it. Some of them we've spun off into other services now, like the arts and culture, and then there's community hall services. So it's taken a bit of the pressure off them now. We have, more committed annual funding that goes out that people don't have to write a grant and aid every single time. But this is the one that actually that we can affect organizations in our community and give them a hand up. Okay, so on receipt, all in favor? And the recommendation is that the additional rural community grant for 2022 be awarded in the amount of $10,000 to the Black Creek Bread of Life food share from Area C grant need. Okay. And the question through to staff would be, this will come up tomorrow's board, right? Ratification? Yes. Because I would think early release of funds, we don't need to put that in there then. Okay, sounds great. All in favor? All opposed? That was quite a little meeting, folks. One more from Director Harbour.
Thank you. I'd like to move that staff works with the the Playground Consortium to look at a grant in this fiscal for the Hornby playground improvements with a report back. I'm not asking for the allocation today. Yeah. So seconder.
Wasn't there another notice of motion?
Yes.
It's all seconded, it's on the floor, all in favor? Okay, and there's a second one, yeah. There's a second one. Dr. Harbour.
Thank you. The last one for today is going right back to the start of the meeting. Oh my God. Oh yes, thank you. That staff come back with a very brief report for us to understand what sort of delegated authorities could ESC have, and that's so that not everything ends up at the board. And I'll make a couple comments on that for Dr. Hardy. Like, I actually don't fully know. There's probably constraints on what we can and cannot send to the board, but I'd be curious of what we're currently sending that we could keep here. And it could range from very large issues, for example, the Stoughton Falls or the Saratoga. Those are all issues that end up at the board. Do they need to? Because often that adds a lot of political oxygen to the entire valley, and that can be a good or bad thing, but at least for us to understand what we need to send to the board versus what we could keep here, it would also make for a more efficient process. So that was the full motion. I hope you captured all that wording.
Yeah, the record reads blah, 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 blah. No, I firmly support this because time and time again had a particular Comox director out saying, why is this coming forward to us? We don't need to listen to 5 minutes of race cars racing around. So a lot of the, it's true, a lot of these issues are strictly electoral issues. And I know it's strictly electoral area that gets to vote on them, but it does take up time at the board. And not to say there won't be some issues that are more regional of nature and would be better served coming to the entire board. So, okay, sounds good. There it is on the staff work with the planning. Oh, that's the other one. Staff to prepare a brief report regarding granting possible delegated authority to the EASC.
That move.
Yeah, and RH seconds it. Okay, so all in favor? Thank you very much. And now a motion to terminate. Bang, we're done. Thank you.